Hello and a pleasant welcome to Week in Review. I'm Edward Tama anchoring this edition of the news program. In the top stories, we're following President George Weah takes tougher actions to curb further spread of coronavirus following the outbreak of the disease in Liberia. Commerce Minister Wilson Tappet denies placing restrictions on the importation of rice in Liberia. The House of Representatives ratifies a $40 million financing agreement between the government of Liberia and the World Bank. The Ministry of Education directs that all schools in Liberia remain closed until March 31 this year. These are the top stories we're following after this break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Following news that the first case of coronavirus has entered Liberia, President George Weah has placed a ban on all travels to and from countries with huge cases of the coronavirus globally. The president in the nationwide address Monday also announced the postponement of his planned nationwide tour.
In view of the above, it is necessary to take certain immediate actions in response to this threat. There must be a strong focus on hygiene from every individuals and organizations. Everyone should wash their hands often, several times a day, with soap and running water, and use hand sanitizers wherever available and affordable. All offices, businesses, schools, churches, and places of public gatherings should provide hand washing facilities at their entrances. There should be no handshaking whatsoever. Use a knob or your head for greeting each other. My impending national county tour is hereby postponed due to this new development on the coronavirus situation. All travels and from all countries with over 200 or more coronavirus cases are hereby banned. All citizens and residents are urged to avoid public gatherings and large crowds and try to keep a minimum social distance of at least 6 feet from people with fever, cough, sneezing, and difficulty in breathing. Non-essential travel by all officials of government is hereby banned. All non-essential employees of the government are hereby granted a paid leave until further notice. The Civil Service Agency will announce the roster of employees in this category. Minimize your travel within Liberia and to from abroad to that which is absolutely necessary.
At the same time, President George Weah warns Liberians and other residents not to panic as health authorities are properly handling the situation.
Let me assure you that government is taking every precaution and actions to protect our borders and ports of entry. However, in spite of these arrangements, I regret to inform you that Liberia has recorded a confirmed case of the COVID-19 virus. The infected person is Mr. Nathaniel Blama, Executive Director of the Environmental Protection Agency, who arrived in Liberia on Brussels Airlines on Friday night, the 13th of March, along with several other officials of government traveling on the same flight. Mr. Blama chose not to be quarantined in keeping with the health protocols that were in place at the airport. An intensive tracing exercise is on the way to identify and test all persons with whom he came into contact. Meanwhile, all other persons who travel on that flight and bypass the mandatory screening protocols are being made to report to the health authorities immediately and without any further delay for testing.
So what are health authorities doing now to stop further spread of the virus? Dr. Musoka Fala is the Acting Director General of the National Public Health Institute of Liberia.
The case is being moved on to a treatment center to initiate treatment. But usually in this, the second most important thing is contact tracing. And we're going to work with the most of the county health team to train people for contact tracing. And that is going to get activated to find all of the contacts, quarantine them, and test them. That is going to go on in the next few hours. It's going to happen very rapidly. The next thing we plan to initiate, was active case detection health facility for fever, cough, and cold. That what I'll do, that will spread our net, just in case there are potential contact in all of, starting in Mosquito County, we work with the Mosquito County team. In all of the counties, surveillance focal person will begin to activate active case search. Anyone presenting with fever, cough, and cold, and respiratory distress will find them and will investigate and go further. Those are the keys that will happen now, and most importantly for the population to help us to cooperate, see the major guidance set by our Honorable Excellency the President, and also to give us information if you know of anybody that may have slipped through the crack in the countries having 200 or more cases to call us and let us know. But the team is on the run. The team is now activated in contact tracing, enhanced case detection. We also have now spoken with the IG. There's going to be enhanced screening with special task force at the airport. And the first thing.
Meanwhile, Liberia's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Francis Kete, has been providing additional new measures put in place by Health Ministry at various health facilities across the country.
Definitely, and I'm sure every one of us here are aware of the challenges that we have. But in spite of the challenges, there are a lot of steps that have been taken in order to make sure that whatever case that we have, we can quickly isolate and carry on treatment. Now that we have an infected case in the country, what our response going to be twofold. We're going to continuously look at preventive services. We're going to look at active contact tracing. We're going to beef up our surveillance, but at the same time, from the response end, from the health sector, we are going to move to a different level of the health sector. So we're going to make sure that the necessary things are available in terms of the health workers preventing themselves, because one of the key components in containing this is how the health workers prevent themselves, because if they can prevent themselves, then we'll be able to save more lives. So we're going to begin to do that. We're going to now move some of our supply.
The government of Liberia has been given a revenue boost of $40 million United States dollars through direct support to the fiscal budget by the World Bank. Speaking Wednesday at the signing ceremony in Monrovia, World Bank Liberia country manager Kwama Intara said the latest support by the bank is against the backdrop of key financial reforms being implemented by the government of Liberia.
Great pleasure this morning for me to be signing on behalf of the World Bank a financing agreement for budget support to Liberia in the amount of $40 million, of which $20 million will be a concessional IDA credit and $20 million will be an IDA grant. This support was approved yesterday, March 17, 2020, by the World Bank Board of Executive Directors. This financing could not have come at a better time for Liberia, given the fiscal challenges that the country has been facing due to many shocks. These fiscal challenges are likely to be exacerbated by the health and economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is our hope, therefore, that this budget support will go some way to alleviating the situation. We plan to...
In response, Finance Minister Samuel Tuah thanked the World Bank for the support, noting that it could not have come at a better time than now.
All of government entities have to work together to get to arrive at where we are. And I think you hinted some of the key actions that have emerged out of this coordination, extraordinary coordination within the government and between the bank and the government. The Land Rights Act, the approval by the Board of Land Authority of a strategy to dealing with the issues that emerge from the Act. The Liberia Sea Development and Certification Agency Act to provide sustainable delivery. Approval of a business plan by LEC. LEC is critical to national transformation. There is no transformation if we don't fix the electricity sector. We do know that. And so the bank is right that we continue to focus on the electricity sector. The government was able to pass the energy theft law. And I think this is going to go a long way in helping power theft, which is causing LEC to lose a giant share of its revenue. The passage of the Dual Customs Code, ratification of free trade, the trade facilitation agreement, actions on tax expenditure and incentive rationalization. Currently, the government, through the Ministry of Finance, has placed a freeze on new incentives for investment, and we're reviewing the whole tax expenditure architecture to rationalize it and ensure to prevent the abuses that we've observed in the last several years.
At the same time, Minister Tuah assured the World Bank that government will continue to implement the financial reforms to ensure that fiscal prudence and good governance.
The timing of this budget support could not be better, given the current situation in the country. I would hasten to say, though, that this budget support is not packaged for the coronavirus. This is part of the fiscal 2019-2020 budget year. And it's a significant part, and it's going to show up government operations. But that it arrives at this time when potentially economy could slow down is also meaningful. And as you've said in your remark, that we're going to be working on a package of support to the country. We also plan to engage the International Monetary Fund through its mission chief on potential possible support for the country, given the economic ramifications that we could observe with COVID-19 in Liberia.
The Liberia National Police says there will be no protests, no peaceful assembly or community gathering until the coronavirus situation is fully contained by government of Liberia. Speaking to the station, police spokesperson Moses Carter says this measure is meant to boost efforts of government in preventing the further spread of coronavirus.
The police, or you may say the joint security, is one of the most vulnerable, respondents. And so we are not taking this lightly. That's why we have, jumped into the civic awareness program in making sure that our citizens get educated on preventive measures.
What about in the vehicles? How do you
the vehicles?
The buses.
Trust me. Yesterday we started enforcement.
Okay.
Again, enforcement will not be 100% enforcement, but it continues.
All right.
It continues. If you know of any operator, whether motorbike operator or vehicle operator, we said commercial or private vehicles are only allowed to carry 3 in the back and 1 in the front. 3 in the back, 1 in the front, whether commercial or private vehicles. And we're talking about those small vehicles. Yeah. The buses, you are to carry 1 in the front Except where there are some buses that have those long seats in the front.
In the front, yeah.
And where there are spaces. Because the whole idea is to ensure that we avoid congestion. We are not going to compromise the safety of our citizens and residents in Liberia. We are not going to allow sympathy or on the basis of car business. You know, the transport is not easy. You know, these are the excuses you have people giving you. You know, and we are asking motorists, motorbike riders, you know, bus, you know, drivers, and the rest of you, please stop exploiting our people. We have received complaints that some of you are skyrocketing your fares because of these, you know, existing, you know, restrictions we put up. We are asking you to stop.
There is no restriction on the importation of rice in Liberia, despite media reports that the Commerce Ministry has reduced the importation for major rice and frozen food imports. Speaking to the station in an interview Thursday, Minister Wilson Tape disclosed plans to ensure that licensed rice importers have the capacity to import the commodity in the country.
It's wrong. It's not possible. It makes no sense. That's our staple. If anything, what we are doing is to ensure that we have an uninterrupted flow of the product into the market, and we want to make sure that that happens at affordable prices. In the process, businesses that have been given license to import rice, we want to make sure that they have the capacity to import the rice, and this is the step that we've taken. We go on a yearly basis to see how much did you bring in last year, and how much are you able to bring in? Were you able to maintain the minimum requirements? For instance, buffer stock. Buffer stock is, for instance, we give you authority to bring in 10,000 bags. You're supposed to keep additional 2,500 bags extra, so that whenever we have a situation, we still have rice in stock. Okay. This is what we are doing to reinforce that, to make sure that we have rice here.
So does it mean that importers are continuing importing rice in
Liberia? Oh, there are more rice coming. You go to the port, they have rice will be coming. You can monitor it yourselves. I think you went with us about 2 weeks ago. You went to the market. We have close to 6-7 months of supply at that time. We have additional. I think, Jack, you were there. You have additional consignment that's coming.
Meanwhile, Minister Wilson Tape is calling on the public to ensure that business people do not hike prices amid coronavirus outbreak.
We go into the market, we have inspectors in the field. I mean, it's a normal human phenomenon when things go difficult. I mean, if you are selling your bucket, all of a sudden, a month ago, you have 10 buckets, you sold only 2. All of a sudden, people running for your bucket. The human instinct would be to increase the price. But we want to make sure, and our inspectors in the field, that you don't do that. You don't do that because those things were brought in at a particular cost. And if those costs have not changed, you cannot just raise the price like that.
What measures have been put in place? I mean, just to add up to Jab's question, what measures have been put in place, you know, to ensure that people don't, you know, carry their prices up? And if they do, what the ministry will do to make sure that they don't do that again?
You see, our best help is the public.
Okay.
It's the public. We cannot. We are just an agent. We are just a ministry. We are not all over the place. But our success has been dramatically attributed to the general public. When you hear it, you call us, and then we go there. And when we go there, we take the step necessary.
The House of Representatives has ratified a $40 million financing agreement between the government of Liberia and the World Bank. Speaking to reporters after the passage of the agreement, Representative Thomas Fowler and the chair on the House's Committee on Ways, Means and Finance commended the World Bank for the massive lift and support to the government of Liberia.
The World Bank and the IMF have realized that the government in general have met some of those benchmarks, and they have agreed to give additional budgetary support in the sum of $40 million. And we just like to be grateful to our colleagues for seeing it fit
especially where our country is under attack. We have this epidemic. We have what we call the coronavirus. We need all hands on deck. We need all resources as a country, external and internal. So the legislature were unanimous today, precisely the House of Representatives, to endorse that communication so that the government can function, the government can move forward.
Meanwhile, in a rare visit at the capital, Thursday, Finance Minister Samuel Tuer responded to reporters' questions about how the World Bank budget support will be spent.
This is money in the national budget. The 526 included 40 million from the World Bank budget support. So it's on the revenue side. This is money for salary, it's money for hospitals, it's money for teachers, it's money regular goods and services for the government. It's now related to Corona. We're working with the World Bank to ensure that we have funding for the Corona. The country is also putting together an economic recovery plan to submit that to the IMF to look at the economic impact this disease is having. Obviously, we're in a slowdown, we're recovering, but this thing will continue to drag us down. So we're putting a big package to engage the International Monetary Fund about the economic impact of all of this. This is the work that we are doing. This money definitely is budget support. It's not Corona money. The World Bank is going to disperse. I think they have agreed on $15 million that's going to be provided. We're working through a project that is already ongoing with additional 7.5 million that will be disbursed fast. So that money will be transparently handled. Special account will be open for that 15 million when it comes, and the Ministry of Health and all of the health authorities who are engaged with the spending of Ebola will make their normal request through the Ministry of Finance, documentary evidence for audit purposes. You want 50 cents, you show receipt of last month, all that stuff will follow the same PFM law to move the.
If you're just coming our way, this is Week in Review, a production of the Liberia National Television. My name is Edward Tama, anchoring this edition of the program. These are the top stories we're following. President George Manawea takes tougher actions to curb further spread of coronavirus following the outbreak of the disease in the country. Commerce Minister Wilson Tabet dispels reports that the ministry placed restriction on the importation of rice in Liberia. The House of Representatives ratifies 40 million financing agreement between the government of Liberia and the World Bank, and the Ministry of Education has directed that all schools in Liberia remain closed until the end of the month this year. More developments are still ahead, but this break to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Liberian health practitioners have been urged to provide equal care for people suffering from different illnesses to ensure all remain healthy in the face of coronavirus outbreak. House Speaker Dr. Bofo Chimos said people suffering from other diseases should not be forgotten because of coronavirus in the country.
In my view, this is where Article 13 of the Constitution comes in, called public health security. And so, if now that can be invoked, I think that everybody now will be guided to seeing how we collectively can ensure that this menace in society can be, gotten rid of. So I would want to say that the best we can say that we take cue from all of what is trending. We are able to clean our environment, because now you cannot specifically say what is corona. And I also want to appeal to the health practitioners that the other diseases or sicknesses should not be forgotten, just because of the coming in of Corona. So let us work on everything. Let us be meticulous, and those persons wanting services must be patient, because of now things are overwhelming.
Meanwhile, Speaker Chambers has stressed the need for Liberia to ensure resource mobilization as a means of helping the country deal with the current crisis.
So in my view, what is simply the case is that, yes, I may appreciate help. Liberia always encounter problems. Liberia needs to remain perpetually buoyant so that economically we can be independent as we are threading that road of independence. As I said, this government is a government of achievement orientation or orientedness. Also, this leadership is a supportive and participatory one. So in concert, we should work on what will be meeting the needs of the people and serving them adequately. We saw the case of Ebola, help came, but again, Liberia must be on a path where there will be enough foundations so that there will not be a semblance of quagmire, activities in the round. So I want to say here and now that we are thankful that the world now is conscious. The health consciousness, in my view, must transcend. It might extend to economic consciousness so that every one of us, as children of God, can enjoy all of his endowments.
Grand Crew County Senator Dr. Peter Coleman has refuted media reports that he refused to adhere to hand-washing protocols at the Capitol building. He made a clarification in an LNTV interview.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true. I felt a little disappointed by that information. As a matter of fact, what you see at the level of the Senate and at the legislature, I chair the Committee on Health. We were the ones that organized that whole thing, about washing hands, about reducing the number of visitors, about keeping the social distance, So we put all of that in place. Why would I, of all persons, get up and will not want to wash my hands? And it's unfortunate that Front Page Africa didn't talk to me, because I arrived at the Capitol building at about 9:25 that morning. I was one of the first legislators there on the ground. I had just come from a coordination meeting at Enfield office, dealing with the same coronavirus. And before I entered Enfield office, I had to wash my hands. We all had to observe it, And I arrived at about 9:30 at the Capitol. In fact, the doors were shut. So all cars had to stop, get out. Before you go further, if you didn't wash your hands, they would not allow you to enter. And I was driving my car. So how would I have entered without washing my hands? And there were so many people out there, they saw me, I washed my hands, and I got in my car and they opened the gate for me, and then I went through, So I was really astonished, I was perplexed when I saw that article from Front Page Africa.
Because it is something out there. Dr. Coleman also spoke of his involvement in policy decisions made by government aimed at fighting coronavirus in Liberia. We don't seem to have that.
As chairman of the Senate Committee on Health, I'm an integral part of the policy making level for health for this country. and especially once you have a health threat that threatens the population, I must be involved. And not only I alone, but all members of my committee are all involved. So we've been attending coordination meetings at the
We're sorry for that disruption. Transport Ministry has instituted new measures aimed at curtailing the rapid spread of coronavirus in Liberia. Already, Liberia has recorded 3 cases of coronavirus, prompting a ban on travels and large gatherings. We have a report. The measures require that all pimping drivers wear protective masks and accommodate a single passenger at a time. LNTV called up with 2 motorcyclists and asked them if they are aware of the new measures.
Me, the reason I've not been wearing the mask is that rumor I've been hearing, and now I see the patient with my eyes to know, to really be sure. Yeah.
For now, I got nothing to do now from this year in Papa evacuation. Yes, sir. All the things they talk about first, attention. You see, some students go out water, me out water, you go lamb there, you drink it.
The measure also captured commercial and private vehicles to carry 3 persons at the back seats and 1 person at the front. But the commercial drivers around town believe the new measures will affect the transportation fares.
That 4 persons at the back.
Okay, so are you aware of the new regulations from the Transport Ministry?
Oh no, since then I've been monitoring my receiver, I don't hear anything like that yet.
Okay, the new regulation is 3 persons at the back, 1 person at the front.
Okay, thank you very much.
So are you ready to implement that?
Yeah, if the government, if the passenger willing to correspond with us because of the gas situation, because we have to charge them according to the seat. Okay. So maybe we can do that.
So you think if you drop the number of passengers, you have to increase the fare?
Yeah, that would be the solution, because normally we take 5 persons, the driver make it 6. So now we drive 1 person, so you have to do that deduction.
Normally, for now, we're driving 4 persons, 3 at the back.
3 at the back, like what you carrying right now?
Yeah.
3 at the back, 1 at the front.
1 at the front.
Okay, so that was the regulation put in place by government, right?
Yeah, that's why we heard. Myself, I've heard it on the radio, and the morning I even told my friends, I say I play radio whole day. I heard 3 at the back. So what we do here, don't take 3. Now the only thing I told them is that right now gas price is 635. Even to find the gas, now I'm packing here, help here. No gas, I have to go to the station. I have to pack in the land. So we told them, we say 120 from here to Banaville, 120, and they said no problem. And since the morning,
so that's a new fare for here to Banaville.
Yeah, because we add on it.
The measure also required tricyclists or kekes to carry 2 persons at the back. But it seems this is difficult for keke drivers. The United Nations mission in Mali over the weekend held a medal parade in honor of Liberian Armed Forces Battalion serving the mission in that West African country. Speaking at the program, MINUSMA Force Commander Lieutenant General Dennis Gulispo expressed the UN's gratitude to the Liberian troops for their level of professionalism and dedication to duty.
On behalf of the Minister of National Defense and the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of Liberia, I convey the warmest regards and the highest.
We apologize for that, but also speaking ahead of the Liberian delegation to the program, Colonel Theophilus Dana said the government is working to increase the strength of the Liberian troops in Mali.
From the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Liberia and President of the Republic of Liberia, His Excellency George Manawia, and the entire people of Liberia, to the government and people of Mali and the United Nations mission here in Mali. The government of Liberia is making every effort to increase its strength representation here and beef up equipment holding. These and many others are the efforts of the government to participate more in international peace support operations and offer suitable platform for the armed forces of Liberia to be exposed to and share ideas with soldiers from other parts of the world. The improvement in manpower equipment will make you comfortable and secure in executing your duty diligently. Permit me to remind you that your duties here are not over with this memorable and well-deserved parade and medal presentation. We have to strive to make it possible for our police here in Mali to have a feel of the peace we enjoy back home. I encourage you to be more watchful and dutiful to yourself and to your colleagues.
For their parts, two Liberian lawmakers, Representative Jimmy Smith and Senator Jonathan Kape, lauded the UN mission for the recognition and encouraged the troops not to rest until their mission is accomplished.
The very situation that we were beneficiary of not too long ago, now that you are here to reciprocate that, I think it brings the AFL to a remarkable standing at this point. And I'm extremely proud of you gallant men for the protections that you are providing here. Thank you so much. We are here to observe this program as per invitation from the Ministry of Defense, so as to give us the opportunity to see for ourselves the environment to live in and what is it that your government could do to make things easier for you.
Today you have demonstrated a success story that Liberia enjoyed. Coming out of war, restructuring the military, making it a force for good, and coming here in Timbuktu, Mali, to show your solidarity in achieving peace is the greatest success story Africa and the world will celebrate. As you do so, we want to congratulate you on this occasion, and at the same time encourage you that we need to work harder to make this world a peaceful place.
Well, I'm afraid that's all we have time for this edition of Week in Review. Before we let go of your reminder of the big stories we told you. President George Manawiya takes tougher actions to curb further spread of coronavirus following the outbreak of the disease in Liberia. Commerce Minister Wilson Tapper denies placing restrictions on the importation of rice in the country. House of Representatives ratifies 40 maiden financing agreement between the government of Liberia and the World Bank. And the Ministry of Education has directed that all schools in Liberia remain closed until March 31. My name is Edward Tamba. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Any official of government, even if you're crazy, come and defy convention, give misinformation and disinformation, the long arm of the law will catch you. Whether you're a minister or legislator, whomever. So speaking foolishness is not free anymore. There will be consequences for foolish statements in keeping with law. Don't wash your hands. Don't listen to